Samuel Iperuszoon, knight Wiselius, February 4, 1769 to May 15, 1845, was a successful Dutch lawyer and a prominent patriot and Democrat, involved in the dismantling of the Dutch East India Company, VOC, and the negotiations over the Cape. Wiselius was a witty, Voltairian spirit with political views far ahead of his time who would end his days writing dramas on classical themes. Wiselius corresponded with nearly all the main players at the time of the Batavian Republic, and it would be impossible to know that period completely without his carefully kept and neatly written correspondence. He was also a poet, historian, and superintendent of the police. Samuel was born in Amsterdam, the only son of the oil merchant Wiselius, himself a patriot and a captain in the Civic Guard, promoted to colonel in May 1787. He grew up on the Wiselius, probably the oldest spot in the city center. Samuel studied law and classics on the Athenaeum in Leicester. In 1786 he traveled to Franeker, and showed his essay on dismissing the local militia in 1650 to Johann Valkenaer and Theodorus van Kooten, then progressive professors at the local university. Although the article went missing, the friendship remained, when the three took a prominent role in the country's future after the year 1795. Samuel had to write a new thesis and obtained his doctorate from Leiden in 1790. He immediately became a lawyer at the Council of Holland, which also served as a court of law. In 1791 Wiselius was the founder of the Brotherhood of Infanterie de Cinque Sabres, Infantry of the Five Sabres, at Leiden, a flirtation with Freemasonry. Mozart had gained great success that year with his Masonically inspired opera The Magic Flute. Wiselius moved with his family to Amsterdam in a house at Prinsengracht, across the Noorderkerk. He had full house in 1793 with 3 lectures for the Society Doctrine et Amicitia in the Kalverstraat. Wiselius proclaimed that the French Revolution signaled a radical new beginning. No longer was it necessary to take heed of the heavy burden of the past, he argued, but the future could be based on development and progress. When French troops had approached the rivers Rhine and Meuse in November 1794, the Patriots started to prepare for a revolution and to stockpile weapons. The hiding place was discovered, and Jacobus van Staphorst and Cornelis Rodolphus Theodorus Krayenhof had to leave the city to avoid being captured. The society in the Kalverstraat was closed down by the police, and Wiselius, the president, had to announce the message to its members. In January 1795 Wiselius and Nicholas van Staphorst were part of the revolutionary committee that occupied the town hall. Wiselius stood before the city government in the nearby town hall on the Dam Square to state that the time had arrived for them to resign. The next morning, the new leaders moved in without much ado and voted Rutger Jan Schimmelpenninck as their president. Stadtholder William V escaped by boat from the beach near The Hague to England. There were no casualties, and it is known as a Velvet Revolution. Together with Peter Paulus, Wiselius advocated an entirely new order, with more powerful central leadership. He distanced himself clearly from the Union of Utrecht, which in his view was only a weak, barely coherent, and in many senses useless treaty violated almost daily, Eens Wak, Weinig Samenhangend, Wielsens Nutteloosem Sheer Datelijksgeschonden Traktat. The vast powers which the provincial states, the highest authorities in the provinces, had wielded over the past 200 years were to be reduced to those of mere clerical institutions. In 1796 he was appointed one of the 28 members of the Committee on the East Indies Trade and Possessions, Comité den Oostindischen Handel en Bezittingen, along with Wibo, with whom he quarreled 2 years later. The committee had to come up with a way of dealing with the bankrupt VOC, a symbol of the Ancien regime's power. The Dutch East India Company was nationalized, its so-called outer chambers in Middelburg, Delft, Enkhuizen, and Hoorn closed down, and its surplus employees dismissed. In 1798 the unitarists Wiselius, von Leeboeher, Wibo, and Quinon were involved in the plans of a coup by Dendels. The French ambassador Charles Delacroix was willing to help if the Dutch came up with a substantial financial reward. In 1801, Wiselius wrote a pamphlet making a laughingstock of Delelmas, a former Dutch East India Company administrator. As a result, Wiselius was not reappointed as one of the 9 members of the Council of Asian Possessions and Establishments, Raad van Aziatische Bezittingen en Etablissementen. A furious Wiselius accused his former colleagues of mismanagement. Wiselius had more respect for Dirk van Hogendorp, a precursor of Multatuli. In 1807 Herman Willem Dendels was sent to Batavia to prepare for the necessary changes. The appointment of Louis Bonaparte as King of the Netherlands led to vehement protests in 1806. Wiselius was among those refusing to offer their services to Mr. Bonaparte, Den Heer Bonaparte. Left without a post, Wiselius now devoted himself to his private interests, the history of ancient Greece and of the city of Amsterdam, in writing plays and poems, living in his country house at the borders of the River Vecht. Later Wiselius was to publish the Charter of 1275. He was also involved in the repairs of the dilapidated historic castle Muiderslot, which was to become museum. It was long suggested that it was Wiselius, not Maria Eletta Hulshoff, who wrote the radical pamphlet entitled Oproeping on het Bataafsvolk, an appeal to the Batavian people. Valkenaer defended her and Wiselius helped the radical Hulshoff escape to England. In 1811, the year after, she moved to New York. In 1814, Wiselius was appointed director of the Amsterdam police after he had refused to accept a position in Batavia. He preferred to stay with his children when his wife died. In 1817, Wiselius was appointed secretary to the Royal Institute of Sciences, KNI, as successor to Willem Bilderdijk. He had been member of the Royal Institute since 1815. In August 1824, Wiselius was visited in his recently rented house, at a prestigious canal in the Jewish neighborhood, not by Louis Bonaparte, as a long-lived legend about his house at Nieuwe Herengracht 99 would have it, but by Gustav IV, the deposed and exiled king of Sweden. The two men discussed Het Reveil, a new, revivalist religious movement, which had started around 1810 in Switzerland. Wiselius showed him the largest room of his house, with a view on the park and 5 enormous fixed paintings, hunting scenes by Jan Weenix. A few years before, Gustav had given up his attic at the smelly Bursig in Basel. The fixed paintings were very fashionable and appreciated in the Romantic era. Actually, the building had always been favored by rich and illustrious art lovers, such as Hendrik Great and Isaac de Pinto. In 1923, the paintings were sold in a private arrangement by the Order of Pure Ladies to the media magnate William Randolph Hearst, who was traveling through Europe in search of objects for his Hearst Castle estate on the Californian coast. Since a few decades the paintings have been dispersed. 2 of them are in the Carlisle Hotel in New York, where Hearst lived for some time. One is in Edinburgh, one is since 1953 in the Allen Memorial Art Museum, and one painting seems to be lost. In 1835, as the head of the police, Wiselius was involved in controlling the tax revolts, organized by house owners at Herrenmarkt Square and in the Jordan neighborhood. Afterwards he and the city mayor were heavily criticized, while sitting dizzy in their chairs, after a meal. Wiselius had not attended in person, but had dispatched a commissioner instead. Wiselius resigned in 1840, but kept his position as secretary of the KNI's literary division for a few more years. After his death, his son-in-law, Piet van Limburg-Brouwer, a physician and writer, wrote a dull biography, but with some crucial details. The statesman J.R. Thorbecke in his Historische Schetsen, Historical Sketches, published in 1860, criticized the biographer, his subject, and his florid jargon. Some authors regard Wiselius as forceful, sharp-witted, animated, or even overstrung. Simon Schama hardly ever has a positive opinion of Wiselius and the Patriot Brotherhood, describing them as only quasi-intellectual, and Wiselius himself as a minor figure, a Jacobin, a renegade, and an overloud, pessimistic drawing-room liberal who shirked real issues, and ended up leaving politics an embittered man. Promeer over de verschillende regeringsvormen, in derzelfde betrekking tot het maatschappelijk gelijk/door Siz Wiselius, 1831. De staatkundige verlichting der Nederlanden, in which Gerrit historisch tafereel gestutst, in Geschrift van den Jaer 1793. Wiselius, Samuel Iperuszoon/2 Brest van Kempen/1828. Geschiedenis van uit Griekenland/J. Delaware de Sales, in het Nederduits Vert. En met an. In Bijvo Exelen Verm. Door Samuel Iperuszoon Wiselius, 1808-1817. Berin Verteling van het Exived Hoofdstuk van den Prophet Josiah. Wiselius, S.is. /Hendrik Gartman/1813. Wederlegging van het Nederrequest in de zogenaamde memory extractief van Mr. H.C. Cross, W. Willink en Dian van Gelder de Neufville, on het Staatsbedwijn der Batische Republiek, in GDN van Wegenienig participanten in de Gizenoostindische Company. Wiselius, Samuel Iperuszoon/Willem Holtrop/1803. Beroep van Mr. S.is. Wiselius, Let van den Roderaziatisch bezitting en etablissementen, op het Batachvolk, Terzake van den inhoudingsbriefs door het werkgeven lichaam van het Batafgemeenbestaan het Staatsbewind der Batavs Republiek, gezonden ten Gelii van de toestemming in de begroting der Staatsbehoeften over den jaar 1804. Wiselius, is. /W Holtrop /1804. Berin verteling van den Leerzang van Habakkuk, Zigna het 3 hoofdstuk Diens Prophets. Wiselius, is. /H. Hartman /1815.